Well, hello viewers, welcome to Indian Drives. My name is Yash and today we are here to do a walk around review of this Mahindra Bolero Neo. And what better terrain and what better backdrop than these rocky textures to show you and to testify for this robust build quality and the off-roading capabilities of this SUV. Now we've already done a comprehensive off-road test which you would have already watched by now. In case you didn't, the link would be popping somewhere right here in the corner. So do make sure you check that video out. Doesn't matter, it's not in an order. You can watch this video first because the major difference is in this video I'll be doing a comprehensive review about what all features you can expect of this car, how does it look, how does it behave, and in the other video we have mainly highlighted on the off-roading capabilities of this 4x2 SUV. Keep in mind, this is not a 4x4 SUV, it's just a 4x2, but it is a capable one. So without any further ado, let's just begin with our walk around comprehensive review of the new Mahindra Bolero Neo. So let's start this review by addressing one of the first confusions that each viewer has regarding this vehicle. That why did Mahindra really rebadge this TUV300 as a Bolero Neo? But the main question here is, can this SUV be closely related to the Bolero and will it match its expectations? Well, stick to the end of the video and you will know the answer. And also, do not forget to watch the off-road test that we have conducted of this SUV to really know the answer of that question. Let's quickly begin with the design of this SUV. So on the front, it looks quite hunk of an baby SUV. Well, not so baby because the actual dimensions of this Bolero Neo are exactly similar to the Bolero. Now speaking of the design language, on the front it gets vertical slat chrome design elements to really highlight the Mahindra logo here that you can see on the chrome finishing over here. But apart from that, you can also see these honeycomb design elements here that are laid out not only on the upper grille but even on the lower grille. Now if you closely pay attention to the bumper, Mahindra has also reworked on the design of these bumpers. They do look different than the TUV300, and another striking changes are here the blacked out headlamps over here and the DRLs that you get on the top end variant. Apart from that, Mahindra has also scooped down the bonnet lines, and the main difference that you will see, or maybe not see but feel when you drive, is the lowered height of the SUV. Now Mahindra has not made any alterations to the chassis, but the Bolero Neo now sits 20 mm lower as compared to the TUV300. Now the Bolero Neo does borrow some of the design elements from the Bolero, like these blacked out elements on the body panels. Now it is a good element, I must say, but the finishing of the material is not that great. It's hard plastic and the shine is not there. It's just hard plastic, and as you can hear it, me scratching it. So the quality of the material, not that great, but the design element, it indeed looks good. And that goes same for the door handles. Hard plastic, not painted, to match out with the theme. It gets the same side mirror as the Scorpio, as you can see with the size of it. On the exterior, you also get a side step to climb into the SUV rather than getting a feeling of sitting in a car like monocoque urban compact SUVs. And speaking of the changes in design, it gets 15-inch alloy wheels, which are perfectly sized for this vehicle. They do not look very small because they do their job pretty well. It keeps the SUV planted on the road, it gives you a good ride comfort, it soaks up the potholes pretty damn well. And the thick tire profile makes sure that you do not damage your wheels and do not curb them or even damage the outer rings of the alloy wheels while going into a quite huge pothole. From rear also, the SUV looks damn handsome and the lines are on point. You do get this tiny left spoiler over here, very subtle but a neat trick to increase the appeal of this body. You do get this plastic wheel cover over here which says Bolero over here, and it is not an alloy wheel, it is a steel wheel over here as a replacement. So let's quickly get inside the Bolero Neo, have a look how the interior is, and for that you need the keys. And as you can see, this is a key borrowed from Mahindra Thar and it looks pretty good. Here we go. First of all, how is the door panel? Well, obviously, considering the price range, you should not be expecting a very heavy leather treatment over here. So it gets plastic, hard plastic, typical Mahindra, but good. The durability is good. You know you won't damage it. So so yes, you can be assured about that. It does get some neat design elements like this aluminum finish on this door handle, the door grab handles. Yes, it is also plastic, you can hear it, but the design is pretty good and it looks great. So that's all about the door panels. Getting inside the cabin. Okay, how does this sound when you close the door? My expectations are it should have a good thunk like an SUV. Pass. In that department, it does pass. Now, yes, it does borrow the steering wheel from Mahindra Thar, and that's a really good thing, not just visually but even from the driving perspective. The steering feedback is pretty great on this SUV. You get audio controls over here. Apart from that, you also get cruise control. To be very honest, my assumptions of the steering wheel was that this would be slightly heavier to drive inside the city, but I was amazed as it was quite well balanced. It was not extremely light like the Hyundai Creta, but it was not very heavy that you cannot drive it inside the city and you won't get tired. It was pretty well balanced, and as you speed up, the steering gets lighter. So another thing that the Bolero Neo borrows from the Thar is the instrument cluster. It looks good. It gets a MID screen that says Bolero Neo, and more importantly, a short brake here. You get Mahindra logo on the infotainment system, and you hear this sound. Quite relatable to Rohit Shetty movies like The Singham, so I guess Mahindra has taken inspiration from there. Yeah, coming back to the instrument layout, the only shortcoming on this instrument cluster is that you cannot operate and you cannot toggle through the menus through any buttons placed here. You literally have to press these two buttons over here like any old SUVs to toggle through the menus, and that is a pain. But apart from that, it works pretty well as we've seen on the Thar. So yes, from the looks, from the design perspective, the cabin is really fresh, and I really have no complaints with this, not even with the materials, because the main highlight is the price range. The price that you pay for this vehicle is also not that exuberant, so that you expect a heavy leather treatment on this. So I really do not complain about anything. Another thing that I like about the interior space is the loads of space, the practicality of it that Mahindra has thought of. As you can see, my sunglasses are kept here, and it has loads of space here, and the placement is pretty good even while going over rough roads or even going through large potholes. This doesn't really fly off, it stays there, and that's a good thing. So yes, you can keep a lot of stuff here without even worrying that it was gonna fly out. When speaking of space, the center layout gets a lot of spaces. As you can see, you might find this weird and you might get confused that this might be for a mobile phone, but no, it's not decently sized for a mobile phone, but I can definitely keep my wallet perfectly placed here, perfectly sized. You can keep your mobile phone here, it's well sized for that. You can fit a half-liter bottle or a 1-liter bottle in this large cup holder. There are 2 other cup holders which are of smaller size. So overall, in terms of space, it does have a good spacing in the center console. You get a handbrake here, a 5-speed gearbox, and yes, like a typical SUV, to give you that SUV feel, it does vibrate when you switch it on. I will just demonstrate that to you. Definitely an improvement, not like the SUVs from the early 2000s, but yes, it does shake. So yeah, the Neo does get a touch infotainment system. Yes, you heard it right. It is a touch operated system, which you also have seen on the Thar, but the layout is slightly different. And okay, no, this does not get the Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto, but it does get the Bluetooth connectivity and all the other basic things that the Mahindra has been offering in this layout of their infotainment system. You get access to a lot of car information. Well, not a lot of, but you get to see your fuel range that you have. You get to see any alerts that your car might be throwing, any service histories. You can switch off the DRLs from here. Then there's also a thing called e-manual, where you can learn how to use the reverse park assist system. As if you do not know that, it just displays how to use the reverse parking sensors. The touch quality, as you've seen on other Mahindra cars, it is good. It's not the most smoothest touch or the most sensitive touch, but it does the job pretty well, so you don't have to really complain about that. You get the aux connectivity and the USB connectivity down here with the 12-volt socket port. So yeah, decently placed. You can just plug in the aux here, keep your mobile phones here. So practically, ergonomically, Mahindra has done a good job here. They have really thought about the space as well, and they have given it a good spacious feeling inside the cabin, and that's actually the main highlight of this ladder on frame chassis. When you climb inside, the highlight keyword is the climbing into the SUV. You don't sit into a car, you climb into the SUV and you feel the amounts of space here. In fact, I would call this not the Bolero Neo, it should actually be named the baby Scorpio actually. Controls, these are manual AC controls over here. You do not get the climate control, but not a complaint at this price range. The seats do get an armrest just like the Scorpio, that's why I call it a baby Scorpio. And the seats are also pretty good, they are comfortable. You get good side support, good enough to keep you holding in the seats. You get normal rear view mirrors, these are not auto dimming or any kind of fancy mirrors, these are just normal mirrors, they work perfectly fine. And I remember back in 2002 when the Scorpio was launched, it still did come with this kind of lighting and it still remains the same. Cost saving. The seating position is actually pretty commanding. You get the clear view of the road, and the scooping bonnet line actually helps increase that visibility so that there's no major obstruction between you and the road. Speaking of the seat comfort on the driving seat, it has got good extended thigh support over here and even on the sides, so you are well placed on these seats, and the side bolstering is pretty well too, because driving this SUV even on the highways, taking it through the corners at let's say a speed about 80, you are well placed on these seats. You do not really swerve around in the cabin. Let's just get back to the rear seats. You've got a similar door panel here, similar textures, similar materials. The door pockets are large enough to house big bottles, and even on the sides you have loads of space. Again, you've got side step to climb into the SUV. Well, nah, we don't need that. We step right into it. Well, I won't say anything. You be the judge of the legroom. Those are my feet. This is the amount of space that I have. If I want, I can be sitting in a cross-legged posture without really damaging any of the interiors, because there is nothing here to damage, or you can actually dirty the fabric of the interior. So let's have some mannerisms and sit here nicely. Mahindra has launched the Bolero Neo as the 7-seater SUV, so theoretically yes, it does have 7 seats, but when the seats are not folded, what about the boot space? Well, that's the reality of it. You don't get any. This is just my tiny camera bag, and this is just a small household bag, so you cannot really expect a large boot space to keep large suitcases here with the seats not folded. However, when you fold the seats, with the seat folded, you do have access to the boot space. But if you have to fold the seats, then what's the point of having a 7-seater SUV? And also, even if you consider that you do not need lots of luggage space for yourself, how about the comfort of the seats? Well, let's just climb into it. Thankfully, you do get a step climb into it, because there is a huge gap here. It's this deep. The floor is not level, so you do need something to climb into. So thankfully, the steps comes as a savior. So this is the reality of the 7-seater SUV. On paper, it has 7 seats, but it is not a comfortable 7-seater SUV, because these seats are really for children, and I don't think so even children would really like to sit here, because you do not have any space. And if you seat another adult over here, I don't think so 2 adults could really fit here with their knees not budging each other. And the only way to be even this comfortable on the seat is by actually lying down and just stretching your legs. But even then, it's not really the most comfortable space to be in because of this flat upright seat. I don't know how, but I never really liked the TUV300, but somehow I don't know whether it's the charm of this badging here or whether it's the reworked body design, but I really like the looks of the Bolero Neo now. It looks perfectly well. It blends in the city, it blends in this rough terrain, and I totally like this car. I totally approve of this car, and if honestly I had to buy a car out of my savings in a budget, I would put my money on this ladder on frame chassis rather than having a monocoque based chassis.